I think the key question is what international investors are going to do. Korea looks cheap relative to other Asian emerging markets, but it is cheap for a reason. And now you're adding an additional political premium to the market.
What do you make of the market reaction so far, and what will it take for investors to be confident to return to the Korean markets?
Hey, good morning. Great to join you. And I think it's going to take time for investors to gain a little bit more confidence. I think at this point, we've seen a lot of volatility. There's been a lot of sound and fury on, call it the political side, the headline side. But at the end of the day, the ruling party is still in power, and we've kind of seen the market move up and down and recoup most of its losses. So when I look at the market right now, perhaps some more internationally exposed companies, technology is an area that has to continue to work for the South Korean market. I'm a little bit more concerned that financials have been weak, since that's been the area of strength for Korean markets this year. But I think it's going to take time for investors to get confidence back. And when you look at other alternatives like Taiwan, where there's a huge dispersion in performance with Korea on a year-to-date basis, it just makes it continue to look all the more attractive.
Financial authorities have been pretty proactive during the political crisis here in South Korea. Do you believe them when they say that they can actually continue with government initiatives to improve valuations, like the Value-up program that investors have been encouraged about South Korea in recent months?
Yeah, I think that can continue. And the fact that you saw domestic investors come to the market on the pullback, I think is a signal that there is strength and durability to that continuing to play out. I think the key question is what international investors are going to do. Korea looks cheap relative to other Asian emerging markets, but it is cheap for a reason. And now you're adding an additional political premium to the market. So again, I think the fact that the central bank is willing to come in, the central bank has been very proactive in being seen and making sure that investors can have confidence. But I think time will tell. And ultimately, as long as we don't have too many more negative headlines or surprises and the impeachment process plays out, with the potential election 60 days after whenever the court rules on the validity of that impeachment, I think the market can then start to move forward. But in the interim, I would probably take a wait and see approach as an international investor, because there's other good areas of this market that might be more expensive, whether it's Taiwan, whether it's India, whether it's continuing to remain in the US, which is a core overweight of mine, until we get a little bit more certainty.
Matt, the picture is a compelling one, though. You say it is cheap at the moment, although you qualify that with it is cheap for a reason. We have a very weak won as well. But if you look at stories like the AI story and some of the Korean stocks connected to that, to what degree is all of that immune from whatever is happening on the political landscape, and do you buy at these levels?
Yeah, Paul, I think you've seen it be a little bit immune because technology has been the outperformer, which has been a more challenged part of the market on a year-to-date basis, where financials, which has been the strength of the Korean market all year, has been a little bit weaker. But it comes to a key theme that whether it's Korea or anywhere else in the world, I've been talking with investors a lot about lately, which is this idea of selectivity. You can choose any market in the world, and there's going to be good and bad investments. And particularly in Korea, where you do have exposure to the artificial intelligence theme, you've got a number of companies in the semi space that have done very well and should continue to do well. Their earnings aren't necessarily tied to political issues with respect to Korea. It's tied to markets that continue to do well. So as they fall on that news, those certainly look a little bit more interesting, but I think you do have to be very selective, and this isn't a market I would be looking at just to buy, broadly speaking. I'd want to pick and choose my places within.
Matt, what do you make of South Korean hardware companies, especially around chips? I've heard the notion that perhaps software will be the trend when it comes to 2025, given, of course, also that we're headed towards potentially more tariffs and just trade tensions all around with an incoming Trump administration.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how that plays out. On one hand, if there is a change in regime, if the ruling leader, if Lee on the other political side kind of takes power, he does seem to be a little bit more Trumpian, at least with respect to tone. Maybe that's an overture to help mitigate some of the potential tariffs that could be levied on a country like Korea. But Korea is also a key ally with respect to China. So there could be a little bit of easing or more negotiations that are held as a result of that. I do think software is a key area of focus for me, particularly small cap software companies in the U.S. Around the rest of the world, I think we're going to have to see how a lot of those trends play out. I'm a little bit reticent to say that Korean companies that haven't already captured some of those gains are going to do well just because the fundamentals haven't changed.